Hello, welcome to training. This is Chief Messenger, and we're going to discuss 2016 fiscal year GMT mandatory training. Today's training, we're going to be discussing sexual assault prevention and response, equal opportunity sexual harassment grievance procedures, suicide prevention, combating trafficking in persons, anti-terrorism level 1 awareness, counterintelligence awareness and reporting, operations security, cybersecurity awareness, privacy and personal identifiable information, records management, alcohol, drugs, and tobacco awareness, sexual health and responsibility program, and domestic violence.
This is your Sexual Assault Prevention and Response GMT, and I am PS1 Mercy. Most importantly, with SAPR, Sexual Assault Prevention and Response, it is everyone's responsibility to eliminate sexual assault. We're going to know our part. We're going to do our part. Sexual assault. The intentional sexual contact characterized by use of force, threats, intimidation, abuse of authority, or when the victim does not or cannot consent. The term includes a broad category of sexual offenses consisting of the following specific UCMJ offenses. You have rape, sexual assault, aggravated sexual contact, abusive sexual contact, forcible sodomy, forced oral or anal sex, or attempts to commit any of these offenses. Reference OpNav Instruction 1750.1 Charlie. Consent. What is it and who can give consent? Consent is a freely given agreement at the time given by a competent person. An expression of lack of consent through words or conduct means there is no consent. So you cannot get consent from an inebriated or drunk person. You cannot get consent from a sleeping person. You cannot get consent from a passed out person. You cannot get consent from a person under the age of 16. You cannot use force, threat of force, or placing a person in fear to get consent. Previous dating, social or sexual relationship by itself, or how a person is dressed does not constitute consent. And again, a sleeping, unconscious, or incompetent person cannot issue consent. Reporting options. There are two types of reporting options, and they are unrestricted and restricted. The differences between both. Ultimately, one kicks off an investigation, and the other is just placed aside so the member can get the help that they need, meaning medical assistance, counseling, but most importantly, the goal is to get the victim the help they need. You want to eliminate sexual assault, know your part, do your part, what that means to all of us. You need to know and understand and adhere to our Navy core values of honor, courage, and commitment. You need to recognize our part in stopping this crime. And starting with our own awareness, know when and where to intervene. And we have to act. If we see a crime or inappropriate action going on, we have to say something. Even if it's just getting the member or the victim out of there, we can do our part to eliminate this from happening to someone. You could be an active bystander. The ways that you can do that is by distraction, third wheel, direct approach, or involve others. I'm going to tell you that only you know which best works for you. There is no set way to be a bystander, but make sure you're doing something. And your SAPR team is Chief Polance, myself, PS1 Mercy, 8U1 Villarreal, AS1 Belcher, AWF1 Carter, AWF1 Reagan, and AT2 Quaid. Thank you.
Equal opportunity sexual harassment and grievance procedures. Enabling objectives. Identify the Navy's equal opportunity policy. Classify the 3 forms of sexual harassment. Identify acceptable and unacceptable behavior in the workplace. Identify key components of grievance procedures. Equal opportunity. The Navy defines equal opportunity as the right of all persons to participate in and benefit from programs and activities for which they are qualified. Navy policy goes on to say that these programs and activities shall be free from social, personal, or institutional barriers that prevent people from rising to the highest level of responsibility possible. Persons shall be evaluated on individual merit, fitness, and capability, regardless of race, color, national origin, sex, or religion. Sexual harassment is a form of discrimination that involves unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature. Forms of sexual harassment. Texting inappropriate comments of a sexual nature, making sexual innuendos or sex-based jokes, making threats if sexual favors are not provided, creating or displaying posters, drawings, pictures, screensavers, or emails of a sexual nature. Support Navy policy by never engaging or participating in discrimination, never engaging or participate in sexual harassment, never condone or ignore sexual harassment, never knowingly make false accusations, never take reprisal against a person providing information on an incident of sexual harassment or discrimination. How to resolve the issue. The Informal Resolution System, or IRS, is the fastest way to resolve the conflict because it uses the immediate chain of command to deal directly with individuals involved. Attempt to resolve at the lowest level possible. There are three methods of informal resolution: direct approach, informal third party, and training request. Grievance procedures. Direct approach. The individual addresses the concerns verbally or in writing with the individual involved. Informal third party. Individual would request assistance from another shipmate or the chain of command to help resolve the issue. And training request. Individual can request that EO or sexual harassment training be conducted in the workplace. Individual is not required to attempt informal resolution prior to filing a formal complaint. NAVPERS 5354/2. The most preferred method for processing a formal complaint, equal opportunity, and sexual harassment within a command where the CO is authorized to provide the requested redress is by using the Navy EO formal complaint form, submitted to the CO unless the complaint is against the CO, and within 24 hours of receipt, the CO or other appropriate authority is required to assign an advocate to each complaint, alleged offender, and any witnesses. Assigning an advocate. Personal advocate, command representative, informs involved parties about the EO complaint process to include available support and counseling services. The EO formal complaint form outlines detailed procedures for complaint resolution. You must submit the Navy EO formal complaint form to officially file a formal complaint. You can get help from your CSS or SIMEO PM to assist with the paperwork. Complaint processing. After a formal complaint form is submitted, investigation must start within 72 hours. The investigating officer will notify the complainant that the investigation has begun. The complainant will acknowledge this notification on the original NAVPERS 5354/2 or by memorandum for the record. On OPREP 3 Navy Unit Situation Report, or SITREP, or OPREP 3 Navy Blue is sent to the General Court Martial Authority, GCMA, describing the situation. Within 20 days of the start of the investigation, a closeout message will be sent describing the action taken. If the investigation is not completed by the 20th day, an updated message must be sent every 14 days thereafter until the closeout message describing case outcome is released. Resolution to the individual's complaint is in the best interest of everyone involved and should be resolved quickly and fairly. Any sailor has the right to communicate with elected officials at any time. This is considered protected communication. Naval Inspector General, or IG. Any sailor not able to receive resolution for their grievance, contact IG office hotline to file a complaint. Conduct a follow-up debrief 30 to 45 days after final action, including determination of satisfaction with effectiveness of corrective action, assessment of the timelines of the process, description of the present command climate, and review to ensure reprisal did not occur. Complainant must be notified that their complaint has been resolved. Both parties have a right to request a review by the next higher authority. A request for a higher level review must be made within 7 days of notification of the resolution of complaint and must include a statement. References.
Hello, I'm Aim1 Peterman, and I'll be going over suicide prevention. Suicide is a significant problem in the United States. 41,149 people killed themselves in 2013. In that same year, 494,169 people went to U.S. emergency departments with self-inflicted injuries. A non-fatal attempt by a sailor is an opportunity to get him or her help. Offer help and alternatives rather than punishing or reprimanding someone who has acted on suicidal thoughts. Get them to talk to the chaplain or the counselor. Suicidal behavior must be taken seriously. Addressing them can prevent a future attempt or successful act of suicide. Causes of suicide. There is no single cause for suicide. Several factors can increase a person's risk for attempting or dying by suicide. Family history of suicide, previous suicide attempts, history of alcohol and substance abuse, easy access to lethal weapons, and an unwillingness to seek help are common risk factors. Of course, having these risk factors does not always mean that suicide will occur. It's just something to look for. This is the Navy's treatment for suicide. This small 3-letter abbreviation. ACT. Simple act of kindness can make a difference and save a life. Ask if someone is depressed and thinking about suicide. Let them know you care and get them assistance or treatment as soon as possible. Out of all the life-saving tools that we're taught in the military, I can't think of one easier than this. CPR, the abdominal thrust, using the AED, all those are way harder than this. Would you rather use an AED or do the 3 simple steps of ACT? Now we're going to go over a video.
My name is Jeremy Kelsey, Chief Petty Officer in the United States Navy, and in the year 2000, I attempted to take my own life. The first things in life that I remember are pain and fear, the kind of fear that's difficult to explain, and it was at the hands of a man who was supposed to be a father figure to me. I trusted him to teach me lessons and be a father, but instead he made the choice to be a monster. From the time I was about 3, he started to sexually abuse me. So I spent my younger years just praying that someone would come and save me, but no one ever came. It only happens in the movies. Once I got away from him, I started to attempt to live a life, but had no clue how to do that, really. Eventually, I decided that, I needed to do something with my life because I was living in my car, and I was absolutely going nowhere. I had gotten a girlfriend that I went to high school with pregnant, and I'm living in my car, so I said, I need to do something. So I went to the Navy recruiter, and I got to my first duty station, and this is where things became normal. And I absolutely did not know how to deal with that. My life was normally full-blown chaos all the time. There was nobody trying to hurt me. There was nobody trying to take advantage of me. Everything was just nice and quiet and normal. So I decided to create that chaos. And that's kind of when the depression sets in, and that's when, that's when you're doomed, is when the depression starts to take over. It's like a demon that once you have that demon inside you, the demon doesn't allow anything else in your life to be important. And I felt like towards the end that there was someone standing next to me screaming into my ear at the top of their lungs, and nothing I could do would make that stop. And all I wanted to do was just to make it stop, make it stop, make it stop. I went down and bought a bottle of rum and a bottle of pills, and I poured them all out on the counter and just started taking handfuls of them until they were all gone, and washed it down with the rum. Everything got quiet because I knew that it was going to be over, and I wasn't going to have to live with this anymore. And I felt that peace that I was looking for finally, and I went to sleep. but I was saved actually by a friend of mine who just happened to come by and see what was going on, and he found me, called the police, and I woke up in the hospital after they had pumped my stomach and done whatever else to try and bring me back. And I knew I did not want to die. I knew I didn't want to die. Because in those moments before I went to sleep, I'd felt that peace, and I knew that it was possible. My commanding officer asked me, "What can I do to help you?" And I told him, I just, please help me to get better. It was overwhelming how much the Navy took care of me at this time. I mean, for some reason, every time I thought they would turn their back on me, they never did. And I made a lot of realizations along the way. Like a lot of folks, I thought that, you know, I can't go and talk to somebody about these things. I mean, I was, how does a man tell another man that he was sexually abused? I can't talk about that. If I had had the courage to do that, none of these things would happen to me. None of them. All I needed to do was to ask someone to help me and look at the extent that it had to come to. 7 years, almost to the day, from when I had attempted suicide. I went from being a second-class petty officer, which I was at the time when I attempted suicide. 7 years later, I was a chief petty officer, which is huge, huge for me. I could not have done it if I didn't get better. The depression would not allow my career to be important to me or my family or anything else. Once that was gone, my career, the sky was the limit. Nothing held me back. And I only wish that I had asked someone to help me sooner. I would beg anybody who is going through a difficult situation and doesn't know what to do or doesn't have the tools to deal with it to ask for help. I beg you, talk to your chaplain, talk to your friends, talk to your chain of command. Anybody will do. Just don't let it get to where I did. Have more strength than I did.
Good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Commander Merwin, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about combating trafficking in persons. As you can see from this slide, it is one of the fastest growing criminal activities in the world. And when we hear trafficking in persons, quite often I think we think about prostitution overseas. And while that's certainly a large part of it, it's not confined to overseas locations. In fact, it happens every day, even here in the United States. In fact, just last week, as part of a multi-state law enforcement effort, 149 minors were rescued and 154 suspects were arrested as part of a large-scale effort to break up child sex trafficking. In addition to sex trafficking, victims are used for child soldiering or to perform labor in industries ranging from domestic service, food service, hotels, or acting as drivers. Victims may be lured away from home with promises of a better life. They're lied to and controlled through physical intimidation, restraint. Families may be threatened, passports withheld, or access to personal finances restricted, all in an effort to keep the victim from escaping or getting help. While arresting the offenders may have some immediate impact, we must remember that trafficking in persons exists because it's profitable. People make money off of it, and that's why they do it. Therefore, we must ensure that we don't do anything to support this crime or tolerate anyone who does. Even if the activity is legal in a country, it is still a violation of UCMJ, and anyone who does anything to participate in these activities will be prosecuted. And now we have a short video that covers some of these items in a little bit more detail.
The Defense Department has zero tolerance for human trafficking-related crimes. The DoD's Combating Trafficking in Persons website has online courses designed to help you identify victims held against their will.
a lot of our training is designed to sensitize our folks to realize that that's not just someone that's serving food or cleaning the barracks or picking up refuse around the base. It could actually be someone who's here against their will and being held in circumstances that fit the criteria for human slavery.
Human trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion to recruit, harbor, transport, or obtain a person for commercial, sex, or labor services. From the Defense Media Activity, I'm Petty Officer Tony Rosa.
Good afternoon. I'm now going to talk a little bit about anti-terrorism. And from this next slide here, you can see that terrorism is the calculated use of violence in order to instill fear, in order to coerce or intimidate governments or societies in pursuit of their goals, goals which are usually religious, political, or ideological. The main point that I want to make here in the next slide is to be vigilant. Always be alert for any suspicious activity, be aware of your surroundings, and report anything that you see that seems out of the ordinary. It's not up to you to eliminate the threat or to thwart the terrorist activity. Your job is just to be alert and let others know what's going on. Next slide. Now, some of the things we want to talk about here are some considerations when you go into an area in which you're not used to. You want to think about, are there terrorists in this area? There are some parts of the world with known terrorist organizations and some that are just starting to see this sort of activity. Are they violent? Are there efforts, do they attack Americans? Do they go after Americans in particular? Or are we just some of the collateral damage? How do they operate? Are they sophisticated? What sort of weapons are they using? Are they predictable? Do they operate only on certain days of the week or months in the year? And then also think about if there's anyone in the area who will warn you. Let us know that we should get out. Next slide. Some of the steps that you'll see here, before they conduct a terrorist activity, the groups want to have a broad target selection. They'll look over a large area, they'll conduct surveillance, they'll pick out individual targets, they then conduct more surveillance, they rehearse it, they carry out the attack, and then they exploit it for their political, religious, or other goals. Next slide. So some of our responsibilities, as we talked about on the very first slide, is to anticipate, to be alert and vigilant, be a hard target, keep a low profile when you're traveling to foreign countries, and know about the area. You can think about the force protection condition that we're in. You can go to local news organizations, go to state.gov, which has a list of all the countries in the world, and it talks about their politics. It talks about crime in the area, whether it's petty crime, violent crime. It talks about if there's any terrorist activities. It talks about if Americans are targets, or basically what you can expect when you're traveling overseas. I think as far as the low profile and hard target, that's an area in which many of us can improve. Things that we've done, we've scraped off base stickers. That's something that we used to do, but now bases no longer require us to have base stickers. Scrape them off if you haven't done so already. You don't want decals on your car proclaiming your pride as a Navy wife or your status in the Marine Corps. Think about what license plates you have. Your license plate frames, do they give away what branch of service you're in? When you travel and you have your backpack, does it have an American flag on it or various other things that would identify you as a member in the military? Even if there's nothing on it, if it's digital camouflage, it draws attention to you. Bringing helmet bags into hotels when traveling. Hats, shirts, even tattoos that you may have. Of course, you can't remove the tattoo very easily, but you can cover it up when you go overseas. You also want to vary your route. Some of these are some threat situations in which we may find ourselves. So kind of going through these here, could be at work, it could be at home, or when you're traveling. So that's why you want to vary your route. You want to keep the low profile. An item here of the hotels and the various floors. If you're staying in a hotel, you want to be somewhere between the 3rd and the 5th floor. Any lower than that, and you're vulnerable to attacks from the ground. Any higher than that, if you need to escape or get out of the hotel, it'll be much more difficult for you. Also with the hostage survival, your actions are to just to stay there. You're not to assist in the extraction. Just do as the rescuers tell you. Don't try to help them out. With all these things here, what you want to do is avoid drawing attention to yourself. Unwanted attention makes you a target. It also endangers your family and your coworkers. Next slide. Good afternoon. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about counterintelligence and operations security, or OPSEC. Cover these two topics together. Next slide. This is a very long way of saying other governments are trying to get information about us, and we don't want to give them that information. Next slide. You're the target. You're also the first line of defense in stopping the enemy from getting information about us or our activities. And something that you want to remember is that other agencies are trying to gain access or gain information from us anytime, anywhere. You don't want to assume that you're in a location or at a time when someone isn't trying to gather intel on us. They're trying to gather that info because of what we know, but also of what we have access to and who we have access to. We have access to NIPRNet, to SIPR, Privacy Act information, for official use only information. May not be you, it may be your boss or someone that you work with. Also, the last slide, or the last bullet here, even though you may trust your family, you trust your friends and your coworkers, all of them may be used to get information. They may be exploited. If you tell your family something, that may be repeated elsewhere, and they may not be as cautious about when and where they talk about it. And by speaking just with their friends, they are there's a vulnerability, and that they may disclose information that they shouldn't be. And when they do this, they're making you, as well as your coworkers and the operation, in jeopardy. Also, as we've talked about in some of the other slides, you want to report any sort of suspicious behavior. Next slide. All right, so what did they want? They want classified information. They also want unclassified information, access to personnel documents. They're looking for weaknesses, personnel weaknesses, also within facilities. They're looking to get information on our routines, how we conduct operations. And they try to get this information through a number of means. It may be just through unsolicited requests, someone coming up to you on the street and asking where you work, or when your ship pulled in, or what time you landed, or how you get on base, or what documentation is required to get on base. They might just ask you. They might play the role of a tourist or somebody who's just looking for some help. Sometimes they come and they visit through official visits. They may even be official visits. So when you're speaking with someone who isn't part of your command, you want to be cautious about what information you're giving out to them, and think about whether or not they have a need to know. They could also be eavesdropping on you. You don't want to assume that you're having a private conversation with your friend. It may be a telephone that they're listening in on, or they may have your hotel room bugged. It could be in a restaurant or in a bar. You don't want to assume that anything you're texting or Skyping is just between you and the other person. Someone may be listening in on that. Next slide. All right, so what you should do is be prepared in advance. If someone asks you questions, avoid answering them. Change the topic, or if you have to answer, be very nondescript in your answer. You want to be observant, and as always, report anything that seems out of the ordinary. You may not have the full information, full idea of what's going on, but if we all pass up this information, then we can make a better determination on what sort of counter intel is being conducted against us. Next slide. All right, as far as OPSEC, if you go to the next slide, please. Basically, as we've all heard before, loose lips sink ships. Don't talk about classified information always, but even if it's unclassified and only a small bit of information, each of that adds up and can form a bigger picture. So don't just assume that what you know isn't going to be of value. Even the smallest of things when taken in greater context, can really provide a picture as to our overall situation. You don't want to leave anything out that someone might gain access to. Don't leave stuff in your car, in a hotel room, in your BOQ room. And basically, the bottom line of all this is to ask yourself, when you're talking with someone, does that person have a need to know? And chances are the answer is no. We talked about in one of the previous slides of the eavesdropping and some of the other ways in which a foreign intelligence agency might try to gather information. They can certainly do all those, but probably the simplest thing is they just go to social media websites. There's a plethora of information that people give out. They give out their name, their date of birth, address, what squadron they're at, where they live, where they're deploying to, who they're transporting, when they're getting in. Basically information that no one needs to know. If you're a part of that mission, you need to know. Otherwise, don't post it on social media. When you're doing it, even if it is unclassified, you are helping the enemy gain a broader picture of our operations and how we conduct ourselves. So, bottom line is, do not discuss anything that, don't discuss the operation. And think about whether someone has a need to know before you disclose any information. Thank you. Oh, and one last thing, we have a short video which will try to illustrate some of the points that we've discussed just now. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Hakim, and I'm looking for someone special. I'm a Scorpio. I love to shop at the black market. I like reading philosophy by firelight and constructing my own IEDs. I'm sorry, I'm on the phone right now. No, shut up. You listen to me. My hobbies include painting, football, searching Facebook to check for US military member status updates. I like to tweet and check MySpace to find out which military member has a family that I would enjoy threatening. And I know that somewhere out there is somebody special for me. Someone to unwittingly give me the information I need.
Good afternoon, I'm IT1 Cross. I'll be covering cyber awareness today. The overview for the course. Operating safely and securely in the cyber domain is critical to mission success and requires an all-hands efforts. The purposes of this lesson is to provide best practices for you and your families. Viruses and malware. A virus is a small software program designed to spread from one computer to another and interfere with computer operation. Malware can be any form of malicious or malignant software that is not a computer virus. It's often used for exploiting backdoors, gathering sensitive information, or preparing systems for exploitation by outside parties later. Adware is advertisement generating software. It's a pop-up. Antivirus software, it's not only important, it's a requirement to access DoD websites. If you don't have any virus software, Navy Home Use Program can provide a variety of choices to protect your personal machines at zero cost to you. Norton Antivirus, Symantec, McAfee, and Microsoft Security Essentials are completely free and cost you nothing. If you need a copy, you can go to the CNRFC Help Desk or the IT department. We'll be happy to provide one for you. Updating your antivirus can be done automatically in the background and should be done as often as humanly possible. Should you update your machine? Yes. If you don't have time to, just like the antivirus, it can be set to update automatically in the background. You need to update everything. Operating system, software, major applications all need to be set to update or manually done at your earliest convenience and regularly. User accounts, there are two kinds. There's an administrator account that handles modifications to the computer, system, software, and establishes user accounts. User accounts are for day-to-day operations of the machine and are separate from the administrative account to prevent installing unwanted software or viruses, in addition to minimizing the exposure of those viruses to the administrative account and the core systems of the machine. Social media. DON personnel are encouraged to post to social media regularly and responsibly. A couple of key things to keep in mind. You are responsible for your actions. Do not break the law. Do not claim ignorance. Identify yourself. It is illegal to pretend to be somebody else on the internet. If you don't say it to your parents, don't post it on Facebook. Don't talk about work. Nobody needs to know when the plane comes and goes if they aren't on that plane. Protect your privacy and the privacy of others. Don't get political. Use Department of the Navy graphics appropriately. Use strong passwords. And be wary and mindful of potential viruses and cyber attacks. And again, do not break the law. Wireless and home networks. Wireless and home networks can be protected by two means, WEP and WPA2. WEP is wired equivalent protection. It's supposed to be the equivalent to plugging a computer in via a hard line or an Ethernet cable directly into your router. However, it's been proven repeatedly that WEP is easy to break and not nearly as efficient as WPA2. WPA2 is Wi-Fi protected access. It's a security protocol that's been designed to replace WEP without the requirement of replacing the hardware itself. If you don't have a WPA2 compliant device, you can either A, do nothing, which is not recommended. You can contact the manufacturer for a software or firmware update, or you can go out and you can buy a new WPA2 compliant device. If you have any questions regarding this training or IT in general, please don't hesitate to stop by the IT department. Thank you. Good afternoon, my name is IT1 Cross. I'll be covering personally identifiable information. PII, or Sensitive Personal Information, or SPI, as it's described in U.S. privacy law and information security, is information that can be used on its own or with other information to identify, contact, or locate a single person, or to identify an individual in context. This can be a social security number, phone number, name, address in conjunction with a name, or any other number of pieces of information that can be used to identify service members or service members' families. Don't leave this stuff in the open. Don't send it via unencrypted email. Use common sense. Keep your family safe. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Wyan Wojcicki and I'll be presenting records management training. Our objective is to discuss an overview of the Department of the Navy Records Management Program and to emphasize your legal responsibility to actively support the creation, use, and management and preservation of federal records. What is a record? A record is anything, papers, memos, presentations, reports, books, maps, emails, and photographs. The SECNAV instruction 5210.8 governs the usage and protection of records. What are my responsibilities? Managing records regardless of their format to assure proper preservation throughout their life cycle as required by the SECNAV Manual 5210.1. The definition of a record. 44 U.S.C. Section 3301 legally defines records as all books, papers, maps, photographs, machine-readable materials such as CDs or DVDs, or other documentary materials, regardless of physical form or characteristics. Basically, anything that can be used for or against the Navy. Records also can include briefs, reports, and studies that reflect official actions taken while conducting Navy or Marine Corps business. Non-records are materials preserved solely for reference, duplicate copies, catalogs, charts, and diagrams for briefing and training. Working files are generally not records unless they are essential to understanding the primary record. Personal papers are not considered a record unless they relate to or have an effect upon the conduct of Department of Navy business. These would include items such as materials relating solely to personal or private business. Emails as a record. If an email contains information that would be considered a record in any other format, the email message, along with its accompanying data and attachments, is a record. Navy and Marine Corps personnel who are connected to external electronic communication systems such as Blackberries and internal web mail need to consider Department of Navy Records Management Program requirements and transfer those records to a DoD-approved records management system such as HP TRIM. And that is all I have for you today. If you have questions, please see me in the admin department and I will assist you.
I'm PS1 Mercy, and this is your DAPA GMT. We're talking about keeping what you earned, responsible versus destructive drinking. Responsible drinking is easier than you think. It is following 3 golden rules. You're going to plan ahead for a safe ride home, which means you're never ever going to get behind the wheel of a car if you've been drinking. You're going to do not try to keep up with others. That means knowing your limit before you get there. Don't engage in any drinking games, and always have a plan, a backup plan, even a backup plan to your backup plan for when you decide to drink or when you decide to go out. Of course, if you choose to drink without the concern of consequences, they can lead to serious damages to your career, health, and life. Again, we're keeping what we earned. And in order to keep what you earned, you want to make sure that you're not driving under the influence. You're not having an alcohol-related incident. You want to make sure that in keeping what you earned, you're not standing in front of the CO with an NJP. You're not getting career setbacks. You're not facing a financial loss, because in this area alone, a DUI can be very expensive on the civilian side, not to mention the removal of your pay. You can have your separation from your family and friends, and health concerns of liver failure, cancer, and heart disease. Don't waste your weekend getting wasted. There are other alternatives to drinking. You don't have to drink to have a good time. You can visit your MWR or your base ITT office. There's always something to do in the Hampton Roads area that doesn't always include alcohol. But if you choose to drink, make sure you have a plan, make sure you have a designated driver, and make sure you don't ever get behind the wheel after you've had any alcohol. Should you do some assessment and realize that you may need help, the self-referral process is initiated by the sailor who desires counseling or treatment for a drug and/or alcohol abuse. Self-referrals do not result in disciplinary action. Your qualified self-referral agents include the Command DAPA, your CO, the XO, the CMC, medical personnel, a chaplain, and Fleet and Family Support Center counselors. Please keep in mind, you cannot do a self-referral after you've had an incident or a command referral. So don't think that if you get a DUI out in town, you could come and self-refer. That is not how that works. A self-referral happens before you have an alcohol-related incident or before you have any type of issue that comes up. If you need any references, you have the OpNav Instruction 5350.4 Delta. That's the Navy Alcohol and Drug Abuse Prevention and Control. And your Command DAPA team is Chief Johnson, myself, PS1 Mercy, and LS1 Seidel. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm HM1 Stoller, and I'm going to be talking about Sexual Health and Responsibility Program, SHARP. The purpose is to promote and protect the sexual health of the Department of the Navy population and to support mission readiness and accomplishment. It's to provide minimize avoidable healthcare costs and personnel losses, prevent morbidity and mortality, and support the quality of life. The definition of sexual health is a state of well-being in relation to sexuality across the lifespan. This includes the ability to understand the benefits, risks, and responsibilities of sexual behavior, the prevention and care of disease and other adverse outcomes, and the possibility of fulfilling sexual relationships. The vision and motto. The vision is to support a Department of the Navy cultural norm in which physical and social sexual health are encouraged, supported, and expected. The motto is to chart a safe course. Each individual has the right and responsibility to make choices about their sexual health and behavior. This is to include and to make sure that members understand that sexual health decision-making is a lifelong and dynamic process because a person's circumstances and relationships may change over time. It is also to provide Department of the Navy members and families with health information, education, and behavior change programs for the prevention of STIs, including HIV and unplanned pregnancies. The goal is to reduce the occurrence of STIs, including HIV, and to reduce unplanned pregnancies among Department of the Navy members and families. This is a great resource for any other information you may have.
Hi, I'm Senior Chief McClay, Command Family Advocacy Program Coordinator. Today we'll talk about domestic violence. All right, the Department of Defense Domestic Violence Policy. Domestic violence will not be tolerated. Response to domestic abuse equals leadership issue. Commanders at every level have a duty to prevent domestic violence, protect the victims, hold those who commit accountable. What is domestic violence? Acts perpetrated by one intimate partner against another. Abusive acts can be physical, sexual, psychological, all affects victims' psychological well-being. There's a disturbing statistic from the FBI. A woman is beaten every 18 seconds. More than 4 million women are abused every year. 1 in 4 men and 1 in 6 women think that under certain conditions it is appropriate for a husband to hit a wife. Let's go over some domestic violence myths and facts. Myth. Domestic violence is rare. Fact. Estimates range from almost 1 million incidents of violence against a current or former partner to 4 million women who are physically abused per year. Myth. Domestic violence is confined to the lower class. Fact. Reports from police, victim services, and studies show domestic violence exists in every socioeconomic group, regardless of race or ethnicity. Myth. Alcohol and drug abuse are real causes of domestic violence. Fact. Because some offenders also abuse alcohol and other drugs, it's easy to conclude substance abuse causes domestic violence. However, not all acts of abuse occur while the offender is under the influence. Substance abuse can increase lethality and offer the batterer another excuse to evade his responsibility. However, treatment of substance abuse does not guarantee the battering will end. Let's go to the types of domestic violence. Physical domestic violence: blocking, burning, grabbing, hitting, open or closed fists or objects, kicking, pushing, restraining, shaking, spitting, strangling, throwing objects, or using weapons. Sexual: forcing sex in front of others, harming the victims sexually, sex with someone who is incapable of consent, pressuring victim to have sex. Rape. Let's go over to psychological: humiliation, intimidation, stalking, verbal abuse, threats of violence to self, children, pets, loved ones, ethnic, racial, cultural slurs. Factors increasing likelihood: batterers think abuse is okay because they witness experienced abuse firsthand as a child. Exposed to violence via mass media, the typical batterer may lack coping skills and see violence as a solution. They may lack power and control over his or her own personal life. They live a self-destructive lifestyle, abusing drugs, including alcohol, or having suicidal thoughts. Cycle of domestic violence. Domestic violence is usually not an isolated incident. Typical pattern of domestic violence: occasional physical abuse, constant psychological abuse, tension building phase, they're walking on eggshells, the explosion phase, anger is released in the form of violence, and then you have the honeymoon phase: apologies, gift giving, great sex. Slide. Tactics used by the batterer: controlling finances, using children, physical or psychological abuse, threatening to take children, using male privilege, servitude, making decisions with no input, stereotype gender roles, making threats to harm one's own self or others, intimidation, abusing pets, destroying property, displaying weapons, isolation, controlling movement, removing access to transportation, emotional abuse, public humiliation, name calling, mind games, degrading comments. Effect on children. Children do understand what is going on, and it does have an impact on them. Men who witness domestic violence as children are twice as likely to be abusive as adults, more likely to exhibit substance abuse, attempted suicide, depression, anxiety, commit sexual assault, run away from home, or violence towards peers. Reporting options. Similar to the SAPR program, we have unrestricted and restricted as well. Our unrestricted are made to security, ombudsman, chain of command. Information is not made to the public, but command is informed and can provide more assistance. Restricted is made to the family advocacy program technician, victim advocate, or a healthcare provider. It allows victims to seek medical services, counseling, and access to other resources while also choosing to withhold report of the incident to the command and security. It's not an option for child abuse. All right, so family advocacy program, if you are having problems, seek the Fleeting Family Support Center or get a hold of your pastor, whoever can help you. Let someone in your chain of command know. Let someone know. Domestic violence can affect your career either way, abuser or the victim. Get help. If you have any questions, if you're in danger, I'll always call 911. But if you have any questions, you can contact myself, or you can get a hold of the National Program Hotline, which the number is 1-800-799-7233. That's 1-800-799-7233. Or you can contact the Navy Reserve website for more information at www.navy.reserve.pages/domestic violence family advocacy program.aspx. Thank you. I'm Senior Chief McClay. The other family advocacy program coordinators are, the head is the CMC, Senior Kuntz, Senior Myers, who's checking out, Senior Ayers, and myself. Thank you for your time.